The grand ballroom at the Marriott downtown was packed with 300 people celebrating my father's retirement after 42 years as chief financial officer at Morrison Industries. Robert Wright had spent 4 decades building his reputation as one of the most respected financial executives in the region, and tonight was his victory lap. "My son is a disappointment." Dad's voice carried across the head table, where I sat quietly picking at my salmon while he held court with the company's board of directors. He was in his element tonight, expensive suit, gold watch glinting under the chandeliers, surrounded by colleagues who hung on his every word about market analysis and fiscal responsibility. 29 years old and still playing with computers like he's in high school, Dad continued, gesturing with his scotch glass toward where I sat. "I keep hoping he'll grow up and get a real job, but some people just aren't cut out for success." The board members nodded politely, though I could see some of them shifting uncomfortably in their chairs. My sister Jennifer, sitting to my left in her designer cocktail dress, gave me a sympathetic look but said nothing. She'd learned years ago that contradicting Dad at public events only made things worse. I took another bite of my dinner and checked my watch. It was 8:23 p.m. on a Friday evening, which meant the final paperwork for the Quantum Systems acquisition should be completed by now. My legal team had been working around the clock for 6 months to structure this deal, and today was the day everything came together. "You know what the problem is with kids these days?" Dad was saying to Morrison CEO, a distinguished man in his 60s who'd worked with Dad for over a decade. "No work ethic. No understanding of what it takes to build something real. They think success comes from staring at screens all day." I pulled out my phone discreetly, checking for updates from my team. The acquisition had indeed closed at 6:47 p.m. Eastern Time, exactly on schedule. Quantum Systems, the artificial intelligence company I'd built from nothing over the past 7 years, was now officially part of TechFlow Corporation's portfolio for $4.2 billion in cash and stock. The largest tech acquisition of the quarter. Possibly the year. "Daniel, put that phone away," Mom whispered from across the table. "People are looking." I glanced around the ballroom. She was right. Several people at nearby tables were stealing glances our way, probably wondering why the guest of honor's son was more interested in his phone than his father's retirement celebration. Above the main stage, a large TV screen was displaying a slideshow of Dad's career highlights, photos from company picnics, awards ceremonies, board meetings. The same screen would later show the congratulatory videos from colleagues who couldn't attend tonight's event. "The thing is," Dad continued, his voice getting louder as the scotch took effect, "some people have it and some people don't. Take my daughter Jennifer here. She's a marketing executive, pulls down 6 figures, drives a BMW. She understands success. But Daniel..." He gestured dismissively in my direction. "Daniel thinks tinkering with computers in his garage is a career." Jennifer squeezed my arm under the table. "Dad's had a few drinks," she whispered. "Just ignore him." But I could see the other guests listening now. Morrison Industries employed over 3,000 people and many of them were here tonight. They were hearing their respected CFO publicly dismiss his son as a failure, and some were clearly uncomfortable with the display. My phone buzzed with a text from my assistant. "CNN will announce the acquisition on their 9 p.m. business segment. Should I try to delay it?" I glanced at the TV screen, which was still cycling through Dad's career photos. In about 37 minutes, depending on the news cycle, this would get very interesting. I typed back, "Let it run as scheduled." The master of ceremonies, Morrison's head of HR, approached the microphone on the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the formal program celebrating Robert Wright's remarkable career. But first, let's take a moment to watch some congratulatory messages from colleagues who couldn't be with us tonight." The lights dimmed slightly as the TV screen switched from the photo slideshow to video mode. Several recorded messages played from former colleagues and business partners, all praising Dad's integrity, intelligence, and dedication to excellence. I had to admit the tributes were impressive. Dad really had built something meaningful over his 4 decades in corporate finance. He'd helped Morrison Industries navigate 3 recessions, multiple acquisitions, and the transition from a regional manufacturer to a multinational corporation. "You know what I'm proudest of?" Dad said during a brief pause between videos, his voice carrying to nearby tables. "I built my career the right way. Hard work, dedication, playing by the rules. No shortcuts, no get-rich-quick schemes, no chasing after the latest fad. He looked directly at me. That's what real success looks like, Daniel. Not whatever it is you do in that garage. I nodded politely and took another sip of my wine. Around us, the celebration continued, colleagues sharing stories, old friends reconnecting, the Morrison Industries family coming together to honor one of their own. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my chief technology officer. Financial Times wants an exclusive interview about the AI breakthrough that made this acquisition possible. Also, the White House Innovation Council called. They want you to speak at next month's Technology Summit. The White House. That was new. I was composing a response when the recorded video messages ended and the screen switched back to live television. The MC had intended to move on to the formal speeches, but the TV was still displaying CNN's evening news broadcast. And in business news tonight, the CNN anchor was saying, one of the largest technology acquisitions of the year was completed today when TechFlow Corporation purchased Quantum Systems for $4.2 billion. The room continued its conversations, but I noticed a few people near the front glancing up at the screen. The acquisition centers around Quantum Systems' revolutionary artificial intelligence platform, which industry experts say could transform everything from medical research to autonomous vehicles. The company's founder and CEO, 29-year-old Daniel Wright, will join TechFlow's board of directors as part of the deal. The conversations at nearby tables were starting to die down as people realized they were hearing news about a $4.2 billion deal involving someone named Daniel Wright. Wright built Quantum Systems from his garage in Seattle 7 years ago, turning it into one of the fastest-growing AI companies in the world. The platform now processes over 2 billion data points daily for clients including NASA, Google, and the Department of Defense. Dad had stopped mid-sentence in his conversation with the CEO. Several board members were staring at the screen, then looking at me, then back at the screen. What did they just say? Jennifer whispered. The CNN anchor continued. Industry analysts are calling this the deal of the decade, with Wright's artificial intelligence algorithms representing a breakthrough that could revolutionize computer processing speed by up to 400%. Mom's wine glass was frozen halfway to her lips. Dad's face had gone completely white. The acquisition makes Wright one of the youngest billionaires in the technology sector, the anchor concluded. TechFlow's stock jumped 12% in after-hours trading on news of the deal. The ballroom had gone almost completely silent. 300 people were staring at the TV screen, then at me, then back at the screen. The only sounds were the gentle clink of silverware and the hum of the air conditioning system. The MC, clearly flustered by this unexpected development, fumbled with his microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're having some technical difficulties with our presentation. Let me just. But nobody was listening to him anymore. Every eye in the room was on me. Daniel, Dad said slowly, his voice barely audible, are they talking about you? I set down my fork and straightened in my chair. Is that? They're talking about me. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. You sold a company for $4 billion? Mom whispered. $4.2 billion, I corrected gently. Though the actual value of the technology is probably closer to $8 billion. TechFlow got a good deal because they were willing to close quickly and offer stock options. Dad was staring at me like I was speaking in a foreign language. But you work in a garage. I started in a garage, I replied. 7 years ago. Now we have offices in Seattle, Austin, Boston, and London. About 1,200 employees worldwide. Jennifer was scrolling frantically through her phone. Daniel, there are articles about you in Fortune, Forbes, TechCrunch. How did we not know about this? Because none of you ever asked what I was actually building, I said simply. You saw someone working with computers and assumed it wasn't serious. The Morrison Industries CEO leaned forward in his chair. Mr. Wright, Daniel, I have to ask, when they mention NASA and the Department of Defense's clients. Quantum Systems provides AI processing power for satellite imagery analysis and predictive logistics modeling, I explained. We also handle some classified projects I can't discuss in detail. The room erupted in murmurs as people processed this information. The son they'd all heard dismissed as a disappointment was apparently working on classified government projects. My phone rang with my distinctive business ringtone. I glanced at the screen. Director Sarah Chin, TechFlow Corporation. I should take this, I said to the table. It's about the integration planning. Dad nodded weakly, still looking like he'd been struck by lightning. Hello, Sarah. Daniel, congratulations. The deal is officially closed, and I have to say the board is thrilled to have you joining us. Your technology is going to revolutionize our entire product line. Thank you, Sarah. I'm looking forward to the partnership. There is one thing we need to discuss urgently. The Pentagon called. They want to accelerate the timeline on the defense contract. Apparently, your AI platform performed better than expected on the initial tests. I glanced around at 300 people hanging on every word of my phone conversation. Could we schedule a call for Monday morning? I'm at a family event right now. Of course. When Daniel. That interview request from 60 Minutes about young entrepreneurs changing the world? They'd like to film next week if you're available. I'll have my assistant coordinate with them. Perfect. Again, congratulations on building something truly revolutionary. The whole industry is talking about what you've accomplished. I ended the call and slipped my phone back into my pocket. The ballroom remained absolutely silent. The Pentagon? Dad asked weakly. Some of my AI algorithms have defense applications, I explained. Pattern recognition, threat assessment, that sort of thing. It's all above board, just classified. The MC finally managed to regain control of the microphone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is certainly an unexpected development. I think we can all agree that the Wright family has given us quite a surprise tonight. Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Robert, the MC continued, did you know about your son's achievements? Dad slowly shook his head. I had no idea. None at all. I stood up, feeling 300 pairs of eyes following my movement. If I could address everyone for a moment? The MC gestured toward the microphone. Please go ahead. I walked to the stage, the same stage where Dad's career highlights had been celebrated just minutes earlier. The room was so quiet I could hear my footsteps echoing off the marble floor. First, I said into the microphone, I want to make something clear. Tonight is about celebrating my father's remarkable 42-year career at Morrison Industries. He's built something meaningful and lasting, and that deserves our full attention. Applause scattered through the room, though people still seemed stunned by the evening's revelations. Second, I want to address the obvious question. Why didn't my family know about quantum systems? The answer is simple. I wanted to build something real before I talked about it. I wanted to prove that my work had value beyond my own opinion. I looked out at the crowd of Morrison Industries employees, many of whom had worked with Dad for decades. My father taught me something important, even if he didn't realize it. He taught me that real success isn't about getting recognition. It's about creating value. For 7 years, I focused on building technology that could solve meaningful problems rather than building a reputation. Dad was crying now, tears streaming down his face as he realized what he'd been dismissing all these years. The artificial intelligence platform we built processes medical imaging data that helps doctors detect cancer earlier. It analyzes climate data that helps scientists predict and prevent natural disasters. It assists NASA in planning missions that expand our understanding of the universe. The room was completely captivated now. So when my father called me a disappointment earlier tonight, he wasn't wrong. I have been disappointing to anyone who measures success by appearance rather than impact. I paused, looking directly at Dad. But I hope that starting tonight we can measure success differently. By the problems we solve, the people we help, and the positive change we create in the world. The applause started slowly, then built to a standing ovation. Not for me, but for the idea that success could be quiet, meaningful, and focused on contribution rather than recognition. I walked back to our table where Dad was waiting with open arms. Daniel, he whispered as he hugged me, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. It's okay, Dad. You taught me to work hard and build something real. I just did it in a way you didn't recognize. As the formal program resumed with speeches celebrating Dad's career, my phone buzzed with messages from reporters, investors, and government officials. But I ignored them all. Tonight was about family. The business could wait until Monday. But as I sat there listening to colleagues praise my father's integrity and vision, I realized something important. We'd both spent our careers building something meaningful. We'd just done it in different ways, in different times, using different tools. And now, maybe we could finally understand each other. The CNN story was still running on the TV screen above the stage, cycling through clips of my Seattle office, photos of the quantum systems team, and graphics showing the AI platform's capabilities. But for the first time in 7 years, I wasn't watching the news about my company. I was watching my father finally see me for who I really was. And that was worth more than any acquisition price.